Hello and welcome to Walking the Earth podcast, the podcast about the backpacking experience. You can check us out online at WTEpodcast.com. I'm Justin Castle calling in from Saratoga Springs, New York.
And I'm Mike Margulies calling in today from my favorite place, Chiang Mai, Thailand. Um, and this episode is being brought to you by Audible.com. You can get yourself a free audiobook download and a free 30-day trial at our link, audibletrial.com/WTE podcast. Listeners of this show, a book you might be interested in would be 50 Shades of Grey. No, but you'll probably like books like The 4 Hour Work Week. There's plenty of books that you would find interesting. God, they've got tons of them out there.
There's bird watching. I just looked that up. There's a bird watching book. You can learn how to bird watch by listening to an audiobook while you're in your car or on your tuk-tuk. So check it out.
So you can get yourself a nice audiobook, support the show. Check them out, audibletrial.com/WTE podcast. And so our guest today is Chris Baki. He's in Khon, Thailand. I guess not too far from me. And so, Chris, you are the force behind OneWeirdGlobe.com, and your blog is focusing mainly on kind of the weird, offbeat destinations more so than the standard beaten path. There's even when you're backpacking, I guess there's a beaten path. So you go and take it a step further, yeah.
That's right, yeah. I remember when I first started getting off the beaten path, people were like, well, what is there to see? What is there to do? And the big question everyone has is, well, why? Why do you go off the beaten path?
Right.
There's this fairly clear way of going places, and I wanted to get off of it. It's like you're going down the highway and you go, hey, there's this little dirt track here. I've never been down that path. And so you go, what's down there?
Ah.
And so there, on one level, there's like the curiosity. What is it? What can you find down that way?
Right.
On another level, it's also, hey, this is the first time a person's been down this path in a while. Mm-hmm. So there's sort of this exotic possibility to it. And a lot more often than not, I found that the more often you can get off the tourist track, the more interesting, the more authentic your experience ends up being.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah, definitely. Because there's, it is even when you're backpacking in general, you are going off of what most people would call the beaten path. But just even within that community, there is a backpacker trail,
Right.
Exactly.
Right, as you go through Southeast Asia.
I remember when the Lonely Planet first came out, they had the traveling through Southeast Asia. They had this whole backpacking trail that they had laid out that the hippies had figured out. Mm-hmm. Now that's 40 years ago, and they actually re-released that book recently, describing the path that they took and the prices from the era, and it was really awesome to kind of reread it. I wasn't around for the first one, but to see how this tour or this path had already been kind of forged, decades ago, it's a reminder that sometimes it's very easy to fall into the same path that everyone else goes on, simply because it's the easiest one to reach.
It's the path of least resistance, right?
That's a big part of it, actually. Yeah.
I found myself the first time I was here in Chiang Mai when my visa expired. I was like, what am I going to do? Okay, I guess I'll take the slow boat to Laos. Next thing you know, I'm going to Luang Prabang. Next thing you know, I'm going south to Vientiane, and there's a certain path. Yeah, I ended up on the backpacker trail, basically, which is good. It was, I had a great time, met awesome people, but there's absolutely something awesome to say for when you go to like the more off the beaten path.
Yeah, no. And so it's clear. I've actually had a couple of people email me and they ask, well, when you say off the beaten path, like how hard is that? How far off of the beaten path do you have to go to feel like you're off the beaten path? And it's a fair question, because when I first started, I was going to places that I'd never heard of. They're way, way, way out the middle of nowhere. These are the sort of places where even the locals kind of go, "You went where?
Right?
How did you get there?" And they give it. There was this sincere look of concern, and they go, "Well, I just got on the bus, and the bus came at 10:30, like the schedule said, and we went, and it was awesome." No, but sometimes getting off the beaten path just means crossing the street.
Ah, okay.
One of my favorite examples of this is in Bangkok. You've got this huge Grand Palace. It's the most popular tourist destination of Thailand. Everybody, their mother and their auntie come to this place. If you cross the street, there's an amulet market. And it's this. It runs a couple of blocks along the sidewalk, and for 5 or 10 baht, about 15 to 30 U.S. cents, you can buy a sandstone or a clay amulet, just a physical, little pendant. A couple inches by a couple inches. It's small. You can put it in a little plastic case and wear it for the spiritual power, or it could just be a nice, cheap souvenir for your friends.
Right.
It's the sort of place where if you're already in the area, cross the street, check it out.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So
the last time I went there, I was there for close to an hour, just kind of getting pictures and getting to feel the place. I never saw another foreigner.
Yeah.
And it begs the question, like, well, why aren't they going? This is pretty awesome.
Well, it's kind of like this catch, because on the one hand, there's these places that people don't know off the beaten path. They're like, hey, why don't people go here? But then as soon as people start going there, then all of a sudden it loses that appeal of being off the beaten path.
Well, it can, yeah.
Once you blaze that trail.
It can, yeah. And there are some places that will always be off the beaten path for one reason or another. Sometimes it's the lack of English signage.
Right.
Sometimes it's just difficult to get to, or it takes a long time to get to. In other cases, even with my enormous, huge reach, there's you're not going to hear about it until you're looking specifically for it.
Right.
Right. You have to go out of your way to.
Yeah. So that's a big part of it. It's also a lot of destinations. A lot of times end up being one destination days. Okay. So you're going to spend your entire day getting to, enjoying, and getting back from a single place. And for the most intrepid tourists, that might not be the best use of their time.
Right. So what was the angle behind, like, when you started doing this? Did you say you just started going to these odd places and being like, I need to share this with people, or did it just come out of the blue, or people started asking you about it?
Well, when I first moved to Korea, in 2008 to become an English teacher. Mm-hmm. From the very beginning, I decided to make a point to visit one new place every week. So a new place or a festival or an event.
Right.
This is while you were teaching
every week.
Like every weekend you would go do something new.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. Teaching was the job that kept me legal in the country and paid the bills.
Right.
But and to be fair, it wasn't particularly a passion. It was something I did for money that I ended up being pretty good at.
Yeah.
But
what's nice is, like, I think about if all else fails, I always have that as a good fallback option.
Yeah, it's a fallback
teach
option.
English.
Yeah. It can be, yeah. So Friday afternoon came, and I resolved to get out of town. So Korea is about the size of Indiana in the U.S. or Portugal in Europe, South Korea, of course. And so I spent 2 years, most weekends, traveling somewhere new, some city, some new area, some province, and I began running out of places to see.
Right.
So if you can imagine spending weekends traveling all across Indiana, or all across Portugal, it's a small country.
Yeah.
It's not quite as big as Thailand or Russia or anything like that. So I began to get a little bit bored. I'd been to most of the mainstream sites and the palaces and temples, so I began looking for what's next. What else is there in this
North
town?
Korea.
That's still a frontier to do. So yeah. So what I ended up doing was hearing about places that were lesser traveled or off the beaten path, and as you hear about one, inevitably you'll hear about others. You'll tell your friends about A, and they'll say, "Oh, have you been to B and C?" And I go, "I haven't heard of C. I've heard of B. I went there last week.
Right.
Have you tried D?" And they go, "That reminds me about E." And you can you can repeat this ad nauseum, but yeah, getting off the beaten path became the thing around 2010. when it began specifically focusing
when you
on
ran out
the
of
places.
ideas of places. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
When I ran out of
That's sweet,
places that were interesting to see. I still go to the more mainstream sites just as a reference point and to kind of see what's interesting. Most of the time, a mainstream destination is a mainstream destination for a reason. It's got good signage, it's easy to reach, or it's reasonably easy to handle. There's something there worth seeing, or people wouldn't continue going.
Right.
Yeah, I think both spots have their things to do because you could go traveling and just see the mainstream stuff, and you will lose some of that experience of that being off the beaten path. But if you just go off the beaten path, well, yeah, you are missing something as well. Like you said, there's reasons why these places are visited.
Yeah.
So that's.
Yeah.
You don't want to like not go to them just like, oh, that's so mainstream, I'm not going there. just for the sake of being.
I want to be alternative.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's been a few people that are like, well, this is kind of a mainstream place. Why did you go there? You're one weird globe. And I'm like, well, I'm a traveler, first and foremost.
Right.
Every place that's weird is sometimes, on one level, it can be difficult to get to places. On another level, frankly, I like going to mainstream places too. So when I revamped the website last year, I specifically made categories. You've got mainstream, weird, super weird, and WTF weird.
What's the weirdest one?
The weirdest place so far has got to be the what's the way to say this? It's the place where they keep the placenta and umbilical cords of a former Korean king's kids.
Oh,
what?
That's interesting.
What?
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
WTF.
Like mummified or something, or in
WTF.
formaldehyde?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So this goes back to hundreds of years. This is a Korean king, and what he did was he kept the umbilical cords and the placentas for his kids. This is King Sejong. This is arguably the most popular, famous Korean king. The modern day Korean alphabet comes from him.
Huh.
So we're going back 400 years here. And so he's the king. He saved the pieces from his 19 kids. And he had them transported to this area in Gyeongsang Namdo. Gyeongsangbuk-do, sorry. This is southeast Asia, or southeast South Korea. Gyeongsangbuk-do. And now there they sit. So they look like just jars inside a fence.
Huh.
And I'll actually copy paste this for you here.
Yeah, we can is there a link we can show people and share on the... we'll share this on the post for the episode.
Yeah, if you guys
so this is a
see
museum of placentas and umbilical cords, essentially.
Pretty much, it's an outdoor museum, and if you just go there,
museum.
Now, if you just go there, it's going to look like a bunch of old jars and statues. You're not going to see what there really is to see, and that's actually a pretty common theme with off the beaten path sort of places. You have to polish the lamp, so to speak.
Okay.
You have to kind of dig deeper, because if you just show up at this place after taking the half-hour bus ride or taxi ride or whatever, you're going to get there, you're going to walk around, because it's kind of fenced off, and you're going to see what look like some old jars, some old statues, and maybe a couple of signs. And you're going to go, huh, okay, that's interesting. Why did we spend all this time and effort to get here? And it's only when you look at the signs and you realize the fuller story. Right. And actually, one of the signs details the layers. It's like an onion. It's the layers of these pots and the layers inside the statue where you can actually get to the old school placenta.
So for your readers and the folks who are following you, if you're breaking down an itinerary for someone, I looked at a few. I didn't get deep into them. Will you break down the history and the feeling and the backstory for people visiting these WTF and everywhere in between sites?
For the most part, yeah. I've published over a dozen itineraries and books, and they're all available on the site, oneweirdglobe.com.
And these are kind of like, when I was looking at them, they kind of are like Lonely Planet, but like off the beaten path version of Lonely
Exactly.
Planet. Sort of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the books are meant to be along the lines of a Lonely Planet guidebook. The itineraries are a bit more surgical. You've got 3-day itineraries and 7-day itineraries, and they're meant to be hour-by-hour guides. So you can always work in your own places, but the idea is you can go from this place to this place, go from A to B to C, and it gives you the directions and how to get there and everything.
Gotcha.
The design is such that you can't get a full blog post on the page, but you get the basics. You get the Cliff's Notes if you want. And if you want more, there's always a blog post around as well.
Gotcha. Okay. And so if you're a backpacker and you see something on your website that catches your interest, you can go to the itineraries page and dive into a 3-day tour or a 7-day tour that's off the beaten path in these different areas. And
exactly.
Gotcha.
Now each itinerary ends up working out a little bit differently. Some of them have more mainstream places. Some of them have more off the beaten path places. If you look at the description, I've got a little slider bar that shows you where it falls in the ranking.
Yeah.
So like one extreme is
on a scale of 1 to
mainstream.
WTF.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, it's basically just more mainstream or more offbeat. But you'll see the slider in there to kind of tell you where it falls. But yeah, there's plenty of ways to make it work for you. In fact, I'm considering revamping them a bit to make them kind of a choose your own destination sort of thing. Remember when you were a kid? Did you ever read
Goosebumps.
the choose your own adventure books?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the Goosebumps Choose Your Adventure books.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Or
To go into the
Boxcar
cave,
Kids.
to go into the cave, go to page 35. To go into the temple, go to page 36.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So that'd be cool. So a travel book with that, that's great. Yeah. From here, you can go north, go to page 3, go south.
Yeah.
You want to go to the Placenta Cave to the west, if you go to page 9.
For Hobo Bob down the alleyway.
I like that.
Give the book away and just go see a Hobo Bob.
I wonder if that's been done before. That's a cool idea.
Yeah, that is cool. Well, I think he's doing it, I guess, right?
Is that the next book?
That's so. It's actually something that I was thinking about it last night. Actually, I remember seeing the Choose Your Own Adventure books. I loved those as a kid. Mm-hmm. In fact, one of my favorite games on my iPad right now. It's called 80 Days, and we're getting off topic, but it's called 80 Days.
That's
all
fine.
good,
And
man.
it's based entirely around the world in 80 Days, the Jules Verne book. And so it's a text-based choose your adventure with some really fun graphics. So you can choose your own path around the world as the characters from the book, which is really cool. Because you can get there faster than 80 days. I think my personal record right now is like 42 or something. But yeah, you can choose whether you take the train into Istanbul or this crazy steampunkish sort of thing.
This has like pictures of the places and stuff too.
It has
So
a
you
few
kinda,
of
like,
them. It's kind of an alternate universe sort of game as well.
Okay,
So
I hear ya.
if you could imagine a mid 19th century with a lot of steampunk inventions.
Right.
And a lot more
Okay, so it takes place in the world of the book, like Jules Verne.
Yeah,
kinda.
exactly,
Okay,
yeah.
I see.
So there's
yeah.
supposedly an adventure that involves the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea with Nemo. I haven't found that one yet.
Okay.
But I've actually talked to the author of this app, and she says, yeah, it's in there. You just have to go to a certain area in the Indian Ocean, and there's a fair chance you'll find him.
Cool. Very
So, like,
cool.
Easter
And I'm
eggs
like, all
hidden in
right.
the game.
Yeah, and there's a ton of those. So it is quite possibly the best $5 I've spent in a long time.
Nice.
That's very cool. I wanted to say that I think that that's a very cool thing that if that project that you're working on sounds really awesome. And I haven't traveled for the listeners out there, they know I haven't traveled that much, but I haven't read a lot of traveling itinerary books. But if there's a book that says, I'm sure there's something out there that says, if you're here for 3 hours, then you say, this is a half-hour trip, this is an hour trip, this is a half-hour trip, and you can splice them all together, or go north, south, like Mike was saying, like that.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense for the the unskillful traveler. Okay, I'm going to be spending 3 hours in this city in Korea. Okay, ready. Here's your options. Boom, 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 boom. Do you want to go see some placentas or do you want to go eat some food? Okay.
Exactly.
Do you want to go see some
And you
placentas?
probably want to do one after the other, because if you do it the other way around, it's just not going to work all that well.
Right.
Oh, I love. Wow, I never thought I'd be talking about a placenta on a podcast.
Yeah, we never know where the
win.
show's gonna go.
You
it
win.
seems, right?
Well,
And so your travel books now, they mostly, it seems that they're Southeast Asia primarily. So you've got a few about Korea, and then I'm looking now, you've got a few in Thailand and also Laos. And this is a a big destination, Asia, for folks that are listeners who say haven't been on a big backpacking trip before, and you want something of a guide to sync things off. This is probably a really good resource for you to find these kind of things.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll be after we have another 7 months or so in Thailand, and then we'll be moving on to Europe and eventually South America for a while.
Cool.
Nice.
So hopefully we'll get more of the globe in the one weird globe. That's the plan, at least.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, that's I agree. So it's funny because also, my Walking the Earth this podcast, my travels have been mostly in Southeast Asia and India so far, but at some point, it'll be other regions that the benefit of having guests, though, is that we get people that have been other places as well. So
right.
I think we've covered
Exactly.
a decent amount of the globe, of this weird globe, walks the much of this weird globe.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Another thing, for people who have the opportunity, please go to oneweirdglobe.com. There's a section. Ben was the most recent guest, and he spoke about his incident where he got jailed in Thailand. And you have a coincidence. I don't know if this is a coincidence or not, but you, Chris, have a recent blog post that says how to avoid getting ripped off in Thailand. So
Yep.
So have you been ripped off in Thailand?
Everyone gets ripped off in Thailand.
Okay.
Amazingly and surprisingly, not
Really?
Not really. Not
Okay.
really. Now I've paid more for tuk-tuks than I want.
Okay.
Right.
But as far as this is a post I just published today, September 1st, and it starts with a friend of mine who blogged about how his girlfriend's bag got stolen while they were in the tuk-tuk. A motorcycle came up and pulled the bag right out of her hands.
Oh wow.
And it's a pretty dramatic sort of story, and it's worth the read. It's from a site called AsiaPundits.com, and it's published recently as well. But coming to Bangkok, honestly, it can be really ripe for disaster. It's the first trip you might take to Southeast Asia, since it's sort of the hub of the airlines.
Yes.
And you, kind sir, kind ma'am, you're loaded with all the tech and the cash that you've come with. You might have been told, well, you bring your cash, you don't have to stop at the ATMs because you get gouged every time you use them or whatever. So, for better or for worse, Bangkok's had decades of experience of working with tourists and relieving them of their money. So,
That's a really eloquent way to put that, by the way.
so yeah, the tuk-tuks are sort of a microcosm of that storm. So in the post, I basically say rule number 1: regard a Bangkok tuk-tuk driver with the same caution you'd show a recently released felon. Now that sounds extreme.
Yeah.
But some tuk-tuk drivers are actually released felons. So there's that. You've also got, there's no nice way to put this. If you find a fair, non-overcharging tuk-tuk driver in Bangkok, I would like to shake his hand and get his autograph, because I have never heard of one. I have never seen one. Now, the best case scenario is you get a price that is posted in some regard. what happens more often than not is that if it's posted in English, it's going to be several times the price you'd pay if you were a Thai person in the same situation.
Right.
So there's no getting around the fact. There's no getting around the fact you will pay more for a tuk-tuk if you are a non-Thai.
Right.
There's no getting around that. With a taxi, you've got a meter. With the BTS, the MRT, Bangkok's 2 subway systems, you pay the same price as a Thai, no problem, no question. Tuk-tuks are the ones where there's no chance at getting the same price. So
I wonder though, maybe if if you speak Thai and you come off as, hey, I am like a local here now. Like obviously you don't look Thai if you're a white person.
No,
but
you have white skin. You pay the foreigner price. I have met locals that have been here for years. They call themselves locals. They're married to a Thai person. They have their Thai wife with them, and they will often be charged the foreigner rate as well. They may have some luck if the Thai wife does some of the talking for them, but the calculation is usually you're a white person, you pay more.
Right.
Okay.
And to some extent, it's
just like that. So
well, that does happen. Although I've kind of come to terms with this. I know that I'm here around Southeast Asia. I'm paying more than the locals pay for a lot of things. But to some extent, I just kind of view that as this is just the price of admission. The fact that I get to come to Southeast Asia where, even though I am paying more than the locals, with the exchange rates coming from US dollars, I still am paying a lot less money than I would say back home for any of these things. And so, I'm getting ripped off, yes. At the same time, though, still living pretty well for what I would consider to be...
there is a perspective there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of like both are true at the same time. And no one likes getting ripped off. But it's like, well, if I put it into perspective, it's like,
Yeah, and also if you as a Thai person were to go to, say, New York and try to get into a taxi where you didn't really know your destination, you didn't know exactly where you were or how to get there, you'd be surprised if you actually got there safe and unripped off.
Right.
So it's not just a Thai thing. It's not just a Southeast Asia thing.
It's
you can ripped
It's a
off
traveling thing,
in every country on Earth. And I'm pretty sure
if
there's
you
some
don't know
penguins
what's going
in
on,
Antarctica.
when you're like a foreigner,
some,
it's sort of...
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there are some penguins in Antarctica that will rip you off if you're carefully. So
they're capable.
So it's clear this is not just a Thai thing. You can get ripped off
not.
everywhere you go. You can get ripped off in Korea and Japan as well. It's just a matter of if you present yourself as a target and there's someone looking to take advantage of you, you are an easy picking.
Yeah.
I got
definitely.
you. So I'm another recent post you had, and you waved it past your camera, your broken arm. How now? I think one of the biggest fears that people have is getting hurt in a foreign country and not knowing what the hell to do. Now, related to this whole, ripping off, etc., tourist thing, how is the experience of being treated in, medical facilities and being a foreigner? How did that go?
Well, it went about as expected. I guess that's the best way to put it. I broke my arm after falling off my bike. I was coming home from a quiz night, and I don't know what happened. I'm biking along, and the next thing I know, I am flipped over my handlebars.
A few too many drinks.
No, that's the thing. I had 2 beers.
I
had 2 beers. I was buzzed. I was not drunk. I was going down a road I've been down 100 times. I got nothing. In fact, my wife and I walked past a few days after I got out of the hospital. I'm looking for a pothole or, some clear evidence that something happened. Because my bike is fine. I'm going to take a quick look at it later today, but it's fine. I can get on it today if I want.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with the bike. It's just my arm got broken. And nothing else got broken too. My head's fine, all the other extremities, whatever. But so, anyways, I got seen by some kind locals who came over to wonder what the heck happened. They took me to the private hospital. I was literally looking at it. It's 500 meters away from where I fell off the bike. Mm-hmm. So they took me to the private hospital. I called my wife to say what happened. We don't have insurance. We haven't had insurance here. So the doctor arranged to get us taken to the public hospital. So basic rule or lesson number one: if you're coming to Thailand, you can basically assume a private hospital will be 2 or 3 times as expensive as the public hospital.
Okay.
And at the private hospitals, you'll have better English. You'll have a faster service in general. The doctors will be able to communicate more clearly with you, but they're going to be more expensive.
Okay.
So we ended up going to the public hospital, where I was basically the only foreigner around.
Oh, wow.
Doctors spoke enough English. Nurses spoke some. But yeah, quite literally the only foreigner around. It can be kind of scary if you're not used to it. But I guess for better or for worse, you deal.
You deal,
So,
okay.
I got the surgery. I got a couple of pieces of titanium in my arm now.
Oh.
They said I'm not going to set off the metal detectors, but I call BS. So lesson number 2 is basically to ask questions and get answers. If you're coming from a Western setup where you're going to be told everything you might ever need to know and then some, it's going to be really different here. I actually had to ask him, so how many pieces of metal did you put in my arm?
Right.
You know,
They don't.
that seems the sort of thing they would have told you, but no, they didn't. So like, well, we put 2 pieces in. It's like this and like this, and it's over here. And I'm like, awesome, thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
You know, and I actually had a recent went to see a doctor recently as myself. I hurt my knee kind of hiking around, but I would say I actually do like the way the medical system runs here, in the sense that same day I can go in and I don't have to make some kind of advanced appointment. I can generally get in, see the doctor that day, and I have health insurance, but I'm out of network. So everything I'm paying is out of pocket, but it kind of doesn't matter because I went to see an orthopedic doctor and to see the doctor for the consultation and get a couple of different types of pills to help me with my knee. The whole thing was like under $100, and without insurance covering any of it. And if I was in the U.S., that would have been probably what my copay would be.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're right.
There's some things I do tend, and this was actually at one of the private hospitals too. So this was on the more expensive one. It still was like affordable. So there are things that I do. I've had good experiences, I guess, for the most part, when I've had to go on to see doctors or whatever abroad.
Right.
So there's good things as well.
That's good.
Yeah. The other thing to consider, if you happen to find yourself in a foreign country, and be it Thailand or Venezuela or anywhere else, just remember that the nurses, they're working, they're trying. You are the oddball in an oddball situation. Yeah. And more often than not, it was a little irritating at times to hear the nurses giggling. These are 20, 30-something women just giggling. And I'm going, please, can you just take your job seriously for just 5 minutes? And so, they kind of have to... on one level, I am the foreigner, so therefore they giggle or whatever.
I see.
Fine,
okay.
Whatever. On another level, the whole being around dead, dying, bloody, spitting up people all the time, I would probably want to try to inject some levity into that myself.
Yeah,
so,
probably.
There's something to be said about trying to keep the mood jovial, but
right.
Yeah. It got a little annoying when my arm is being cut open. They're fixing the bones, and then the doctor starts giggling. I'm like, what is going on here? Are you serious?
Am I on Punk'd? Am I on a TV show right
There's
now?
a camera in here somewhere, and I'm gonna kill someone. But no. The doctors the doctors in the same mood. They're trying to keep things jovial.
Right.
There's some in joke that I'm not privy to because I don't have Thai.
Come on, man.
I kind of like that. I don't know. Yeah, I kind of take it as like it's like Patch Adams or something, keeping it happy.
Yeah.
I would have just said, why weren't you knocked out is my question. If I were in that situation, I would be under gas. I would not be awake. I don't want to hear anybody laughing. I just want it to be done.
Well, I was given, it was actually minutes before the surgery where they asked me, okay, so we can give you general anesthesia or we can give you local lidocaine.
Right.
And from my wife's experience with her own medical issues, you can basically assume local is always cheaper than general.
Yep.
And that's going to be standard the world over. Doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter who you are. Local is going to be cheaper than general. So if you're ever in the position where you have to choose, you might have to ask, okay, are you willing to put up with a little bit of discomfort to save yourself some serious coin?
Oh, okay. Okay, fair enough.
Nice. Well, with that, man, we have one more question for you. What is one thing that you would like to do in your life before you die?
Oh man, the bucket list question. I've got a long list of places that's not written down. No, what it ends up being, like, the first time I heard the idea of a bucket list, it seemed like the sort of just a natural thing that every travel blogger would have to have. And some do. They publish their bucket list, and it's a well-known thing on their site. I haven't really written it out, honestly. On one level, I'd like to do an epic tour of the U.S. I'd love to see the country that I never really saw. I dare say I know Korea better than 95% of Koreans. And I've met Koreans that have traveled more of the U.S. than I have.
Interesting.
So on one level, take 6 months or 9 months, maybe a year, and just do like an epic road trip around the weird places of the U.S. Getting to see some of the oddball places. Maybe I don't see Antarctica ever actually happening, but it would be an interesting place to visit if the opportunity were to arise. It's the weird thing about travel blogging is that the more you travel, the more your eyes are open to places to go.
Yeah, exactly.
And
you don't like take places off the list; they just get more added all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll go to one place and then you'll hear about two more. It's like a hydra. You just can't stop. You never really get to the end. You know, so you either end up stopping traveling because you're physically unable to travel, or you run out of money, or you die.
Right.
If that's your personality, you travel as long as you're able.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah,
well, that's
definitely.
a great answer.
I relate to that also. I'd like to see more of the States also at some point. Being abroad, I've been traveling abroad, but I haven't really. I've traveled within the U.S., but not for like any extended period. So that would be a cool experience.
Yeah.
At some point, maybe buy an RV and kind of drive around the country with a couple of friends or something. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I'd love to do that too. I haven't done that.
Yeah, well, we should do it, man. Go get an RV.
Yeah,
and drive around the country.
Hey, man. Yeah,
and you can sell the RV at the end. Fund it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Exactly. Well, the other thing to consider is that obviously the more people you can get on the trip, the cheaper it ends up being per person.
Yeah, that too.
And doing the RV thing is awesome. I guess there's got to be a difference between like the epic road trip you take after you finish high school before you start college, like that 3-month period. Mm-hmm. There's a huge difference between that kind of road trip and the one you take in your 30s.
Right.
It's hard to explain exactly. I guess it's less alcohol fueled, I guess. I don't know. It's probably more about the destination and also somewhat about the journey.
Right. It's introspective a little bit, I'm sure. It
can be, yeah.
It
can be.
Well,
definitely.
Well,
sweet, man. Well, people can find more from you at oneweirdglobe.com. You've also got on your website, people can find links to, and we'll also post links on the post for this episode to your books. And you have an upcoming book. What's the one you have coming up?
The one upcoming, it's currently rough titled Offbeat Thailand, a One Weird Globe Guide. And basically, I've spent a year and a half plus in Thailand now. I'll be here for another 7 months or so. And the gist of this book is to highlight the weird, the offbeat, the bizarre places around Thailand. It's going to be like a Lonely Planet guidebook, but just about the offbeat places.
Gotcha.
Sweet.
And I'm working on it right now. It's set to come out mid 2015. If you go to the books page, you can actually there's a little email box there, and what you can do, you can type in your email, and I will send you an email when it comes out, and I'll give you a discount just for signing up.
Okay.
All right.
Excellent.
We'll link up to that one also. Perfect.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Yes, thanks you, Chris.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome. It's been a pleasure. Well, again, you can catch Mr. Chris online at oneweirdglobe.com. And you can check us out online at WTEpodcast.com. And don't forget to try your free trial at audibletrial.com/WTE podcast. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.